Okay, here's the second spring book. Oops, sorry. This one is for Nancy. She said she wanted a spring book made with vintage fabrics and laces and things. So I used this handkerchief that had tulips on it. Beautiful. And it's got some vintage rickrack. I don't know, I'm not sure how vintage this lace is. I acquired it in a bag of laces and stuff. But these doilies here, I picked them off of a vintage doily, these flowers. And there's ribbon stitched on there. And again, I folded the edges of the the handkerchief over, and it had this black printed border around the edges. The napkin, or I keep saying napkin, the handkerchief wasn't square. It kind of got stretched over the years, so the pocket slants down. But it's there, it's a pocket. This is something I found on the internet. I backed it with Kool-Aid dyed paper. There's a yellow library card in there. There's a little bunny printable. I tried not to use Eastery images, but there are spring animals and flowers and birds and things. Because she didn't request Easter, she requested spring. This is a bridge tally that I recently acquired, and it's got a lady holding a tulip, so I thought that was spring-like. There's a pink tulle edging here and pink ribbon. More stenciling. This lady said that her mother used to sew and quilt, and so here's another piece of that log cabin quilt that my mother pieced together, Nancy, from my mother to yours. And purple rickrack and the pink floral fabric. You can see the imprint of the doily there on that Kool-Aid dyed paper. More Edith Holden paper. Look at that cute little duck. I love him. A vellum pocket again with a rabbit and the rainbow rickrack. And then this is, I think this is Ephemera's Garden also. And I Mod Podged this floral napkin onto a merchandise bag. Foxgloves. I love foxgloves. And an alterations tag, again with seam binding and a bulb pin and a little tag. Goes inside that envelope. And there's just a piece of fabric here with this little Ephemera's Garden bunny journaling card on there and some rainbow rickrack. Here's a vellum, not vellum, glassine little sack with a little chickie and a white shipping tag and some baker's twine. Why is it so hard for me to think of words today? There's a decoupage napkin on here, and I sprayed again, and this one is stenciled with a little piece of eyelet fabric with yellow rosebuds on it. And this trim came off of a vintage table runner or something like that. Dresser scarf. And there's a little vintage applique. This is a Kool-Aid dyed index card, and I fussy cut this jar of flowers out from scrapbook paper. This is vintage bias tape stitched along the edge. And inside the little tuck spot is just a scrap of that watercolor paper that's so beautiful. I stitched some pom-pom trim along the edge of this page. This is an envelope made from the Edith Holden book, and there's a little printable stitched on there with a little girl feeding a lamb. And then these are both from Ephemera's Garden, stitched to vintage ledger paper. They go in there, I promise. More daffodils, some eggs. A sheet there for journaling on. It says errands at the top. And this is a smaller merchandise bag that I Mod Podged a napkin to. There's a pink guest check inside and a tag. Just a blank tag. This little lamb I found on the internet. Just cut him out and glued him on. There's Narcissus stamped on there, and some more Mod Podge napkin. Some eyelets stitched on there, just a little journaling spot. Here's the other side of the merchandise bag, and it has another pink guest check and a couple of sheets of paper for writing. And this one has a little yellow flower and a yellow bulb pin attached to the paper clip. Oops. I just love that napkin. This image I found on the internet, and it has to be an illustration from a vintage children's book, and I just love the colors of this image. That's just gorgeous, and I had to include it in here. Vintage ledger paper on the back. Here's another one of those envelopes with the beautiful flap. Femra's Garden image there. There's a little bunny stamped. Again, that handkerchief with the purple stitching, the fabric, and the rickrack. Vintage seal, and then in here is a vintage postcard from the current company. It says just a line. There's a lady hanging out wash, and a couple of vintage receipts. So if you like this one, Nancy, I will list this in my shop, reserved for you. And stay tuned. I'll be back with the third journal that will be available for sale in my Etsy shop.